This is what happens when you fight to change things. First, they call you crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden, you change the world. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to True Crime Loser. How's it going? So, today, first thing, if you enjoy this channel, think about supporting it through Patreon. There's a link in the description. I would appreciate it. All right, today, we're going over Elizabeth baritone voice Holmes. It's been in the news a lot lately. Two documentaries, just like the Fire Festival, are coming out on how she defrauded investors for millions of dollars, put lives at risk, lied to everybody, talked like this. At first, you change the world, and then you work harder, and then you change the world again. All those people that picture themselves as like visionaries or whatever, like I'm the visionary behind the new vision of Airy. All these people they think they can have all these great quotes, like quotable quotes. It's like you're just kind of a nerd. You're not good at writing quotes. So in every interview, Elizabeth Holmes, like, at first, everybody told me that I couldn't do it, but then it turns out I really definitely couldn't do it. Thank you. Everybody called me crazy, and then I turned out to be pretty nuts. Thank you. But, yeah, let's just start at the beginning for people that haven't been following this. So, Elizabeth Holmes is this big, tall, sometimes pretty, I would say. She's pretty. She goes through phases. I think that the stress of when the company was really tanking, she started to look a little weird. She's got these big blue eyes that Stephanie Lazarus would be like, oh, those are a little bit crazy. Got a little crazy eye going. At first, they call your eyes crazy, and then you end up changing the world. And then this voice that I'm imitating, it's like she adopted a CEO voice for this whole thing. I think she thought that to be assertive and to run a company, she had to talk in this baritone voice, but it's just hilarious, all the interviews that she does. Well, good question. Okay, so she's 19 years old, and her whole life she had been obsessed with Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and changing the world and doing something that everybody thought was impossible. All of her people that knew her when she was young always said, like, always just said, "What I want to do something impossible." And it's like, that's a okay mindset to have as long as you can just do it. And if you can't do it, you got to admit defeat and just get the hell out of there. You can't just keep going. So her whole life is she pictured herself as the next Bill Gates or the next, what's his face? The Apple guy. She loved him. I'll think of his name. I just said it. I'm blanking on it. But she loved all those like visionary Silicon Valley. And the truth is, most of the Silicon Valley ideas just bomb. They just don't work. It's one of my favorite things is to watch those tech conferences where the next, there it is, Steve Jobs, the next Steve Jobs type is they're sitting there and like, turtlenecks being like, this app that we do, you can plug in your data and then it turns out to do your taxes for you, and then they do it live and it doesn't work, and they're just like, okay, sorry, I guess I'm not the next Bill Gates. So all these psychos in Silicon Valley have all this money, and they have all of, there's like more money in this little neighborhood in Silicon Valley than anywhere else. And so she has dreams to be in this life, and her dream is to do something impossible. So she gets into Stanford. She is actually very smart. She's brilliant. And she's also a very good liar or good, I don't know, how do you get money? What's the word where you get money from investors? She's good at talking to investors, and the investors are like, we believe in you, and we'll give you money. So as a 19-year-old going to Stanford, believes 100% that she will do something impossible that will help mankind. At first they fight you, and then you change the world. And so she like convinces all the advisors at Stanford that she should be taking like senior level biochemical engineering classes, like all these wild classes. And they're like, no, you're just a freshman. And she's like, no, I really want to do it. And she, whatever, asks them really hard, like, I really want to take the class. And so she finally gets into these like upper classes. She does well, and she really wins over one of the top professors for like chemical engineering or something at Stanford. And she really gets him on her side. And her first idea while still going to Stanford is a patch that goes on your arm, and it constantly is testing your body for diseases and deficiencies. And whenever it detects something like, you're deficient in iron or you have a disease or something, then somehow it lets you know. And then you're able to insert, or you're able to give yourself medicine, the exact perfect medicine, I think with the patch too, and like fix the problem with yourself, right? And you don't even have to like go to a doctor or something. And it's like, well, that's a pretty cool idea, Elizabeth, but all the people that actually know stuff about skin and patches and the body and anything were like, that's a cool idea, but it's just impossible. Totally impossible. The skin, the whole point we have skin is it's a barrier and to block all the good stuff, the stuff inside that we need. And so the skin's not going to let all these tests happen, and you're not going to do your own medicine. And it's just, they were like, you're young. And, we all had stupid ideas when we were 19. And it's not necessarily a stupid idea. It's just like, good idea, but the skin, we have skin, Stephanie. And I've noticed with a lot of these Silicon Valley, upstart, I'm going to change the world type people is they don't really hear no very well. And if they do, if someone's like, hey, hi, how's it going? I've been in this business for 35 years, and the skin isn't the place for to like do all this stuff, but solid idea. They kind of look at that old expert as like, oh, you just don't have the vision. You're just not a visionary like me. I am a visionary, okay? I am a visionary. And so it like that type of criticism, or just like, hey, like we need to just have a new idea because that one's not going to work. That type of criticism is sort of met on just like deaf ears and crazy eyes. Like at first they fight you and then they call you crazy. But there's a chance that maybe they should fight you, and a small possibility that you are crazy. And so like Billy McFarland from the Fire Festival had people like that too. There was like a guy that had actually put on music festivals being like, Billy, hi, you gotta email some people and tell them not to come because we don't have enough tents and beds, and you can't come to a music festival on the Bahamas and not have enough beds. And Billy would be like, we're a solutions-oriented operation. We're not a problems-oriented. So if you could figure out... And same with Elizabeth. She's like, I want the patch. And they're like, that's not going to work. And she just would be like, oh, you're just not as smart as me. You're not a visionary like me. And so I'm just going to find someone that will tell me yes. And so a lot of these people... They'll hire like the best people to come in because all they have, they're just the visionary. Like, I just think of the ideas. Same way as Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs just was like, I think that, this phone should be like this. And then he would have really smart people sit there and be like, I've got to figure this out. And so same thing, Elizabeth Holmes has no diagnostic anything. And so she just got to hire all these people. But when she's like, tells these people, hey, like, I want the patch to do this, they're just like, well, that's not going to work. Then she'll just get rid of them and get new people. So it's just like, you basically just find yes people until you've completely bottomed out and are about to go to jail. All right, so she's 19, she's got the patch idea. People are like, what? And then she drops out of Stanford, which is the hip, cool thing to do. Jobs dropped out. Gates dropped out. Another one of the top, Mount Rushmore of tech people dropped out. And so she drops out, and you can see her in speeches being like, well, I didn't go to class anyway, and because I'm a visionary. So she proudly drops out of Stanford, because that's what you got to do. You got to wear black turtlenecks, you got to drop out of Stanford, and you got to be a visionary. If not, then what are you? What really are you if you're not? Okay, so you got to, fake it till you make it. That's the whole strategy of these, Fire Festival, like the Billy McFarlane, and you got to fake it till you make it. All right, so she drops out, and she ditches the patch idea because everyone's like, it's not going to work. And so then her second idea, which is she starts this company around Theranos. That's the company that all this controversy is based around. So she starts this company, Theranos. She brings over Steve Jobs' right-hand man. She convinces him to come over, and the idea is they're going to make this box about this big, very small, and it's called the Edison. The Edison. And what it's going to do is you're going to be able to, for the first time, just take a little pinprick and just a little drop of blood onto a thing, and you're going to be able to put that thing, that little piece with just a drop of blood into the machine, the Edison. And it's going to run hundreds of tests on that little drop of blood. You're going to get the results instantly, and getting blood drawn and blood work done will be revolutionized. The days of sitting there and watching them fill up the thing, being like, oh God, are over. There's no more needles. It's over, everybody. The Edison is here. And so that's the idea. And she goes out with that idea and starts to get investors. And she really gets a who's who of old white dudes with money. Kissinger, Schultz, all these just really wealthy. And I think she was really successful at fundraising for a lot of reasons. One, she knew exactly, she just would lie her ass off. So if you're not telling the truth about the company and actually what your inventions are doing, it's probably a little bit easier, because she was probably just being like, this is going to revolutionize. I'm a visionary. Just saying exactly what she needs to say. Two, I think that she's this tall, young, attractive girl that was pretty good at charming these older men, giving them attention. And then three, I think that everybody really was betting on, okay, we've had Bill Gates and we've had Steve Jobs, the Times, even the Times here in America. It's like everyone was betting on the female CEO tech giant, because there hadn't been one yet. And I think a lot of them were like, oh, this is going to be huge, the female tech giant. And so through all of those she was able to raise a lot of money without really doing it. It's just explaining, like, I have this Edison machine. So she raises, I think total throughout the whole thing, like $900 million from all these people. And here's the problem. The Edison machine didn't work. It didn't do anything. It just was a box of nothing. And they were having tons of problems with it. So all the smart people that she had actually building it were like, there was like one guy that was like, we're not going to be able to do it this small. It's just, the machines that actually run these blood tests that you can buy, that like when we go get our blood tested right now, the machines that do it are as big as a car or bigger. And so, this guy, this engineer that's working on it tells Elizabeth, like, hey, we can probably do a lot of these tests, but we just got to make the box bigger. And Elizabeth, with her Silicon Valley, everything's got to be small mentality, is like, at first they fight you and then they call you crazy and then all of a sudden you're fired. And so she wasn't trying to hear any criticism that it was too small or that it's not going to work. And that's my first. You have to listen. There's always an expert in the Fire Festival documentaries, and in this one, there's always some expert that's like talking sense, being like, whoa, we can't do this. It's impossible. And in both times, they're just run over, they're thrown out in the trash, and I know for a fact that I don't have that quality to just barrel no matter what. Like, if I was hiring someone to tell me, like, hey, this isn't going to work, I'd be like, okay, I believe you. Shut it down. Let's quit. Let's just go to the beach. I'm stressed out. All right, so the Edison isn't working, and it's not working a lot. And they're saying that, like, so there's not enough blood, first of all, to do it. Just because she wanted just a little pinprick, it doesn't change the fact that you need a bunch of blood to do these tests. And so that's one problem. And so they're putting the blood in, and these little things like come down and suck up the blood and then put it over here, and then it's like comes and grabs it, and it's like trying to do all these tests. Well, things are like breaking in there, and blood is splattering everywhere, and the machines were just getting gross on the inside and just filled with a bunch of people's blood, and it just wasn't working. And instead of Elizabeth saying, like, we're having a lot of trouble with this, telling investors, she just doubled down, and she was going on all these TED Talks being like, for the first time in human history, we're doing blood test with this amount of blood. And she took a lot of these, like, all these, like, official pictures with the white background, wearing the black, like, Steve Jobs turtleneck, being like, for the first time in human history. And she's just saying that, we're working with the military, so, which they weren't. We're working with the military so you can do this on the battlefield. Like, she made it sound like they were having military contracts. And she, it's just basically saying that this machine that they invented does 200 blood tests, and it's going to do more, and it's only from this little nano container of blood. And she's doing TED Talks. And then a Fortune magazine article comes out with her on the cover, and this is just what exploded her into just the stratosphere. So they do a cover story on her, and the guy from Fortune asks her, like, how are you doing this? How is it, and she's just like, it's trade secrets. And she's allowed to kind of not say what the business is doing to investors or to anybody, because she just keeps saying trade secrets. Everyone's going to try to steal this from us, this technology. And so much companies with that type of investors and money would have to sort of come out and say what they're doing long before she ever had to. And it was because it's like investors and just, you're investing in me. I'm the visionary. But the problem is, the Edison wasn't working. And then they get a contract with Walgreens, which is a huge like pharmacy, get everything store. There's one on every corner store here in America. And so they get this huge contract, which looks really good to the business world and to the investors. It's like, whoa, they got Walgreens. That's pretty cool. And so they set it up like a wellness center in Walgreens. I think it was every Walgreens in Arizona was they were going to start. So if you went to a Theranos wellness center in Walgreens, you live in Arizona, let me know in the comments. I'm just interested. And so this Walgreens Wellness Center, the Edison is going to be in there. You're going to get your blood work done right away, right there. It's going to be insane. Change the world. But the problem is the Edison doesn't work. So very quickly, the blood results are coming back wrong or not coming back. And Elizabeth is like, shit, dang it, this isn't working. And so what she does is she can't tell everyone, hey, the Edison doesn't work. I took all this money. I'm failing miserably. But so she can't do that because the investors, everything is crashing down. So instead of admitting the Edison is fake, they buy huge blood testing machines that everybody else uses, like the industry standard blood testing machine, and they make a lab in their Theranos headquarters in Silicon Valley. And so instead of the Edison box is sitting there in all the Walgreens, but they don't even use it. The same thing is, so when people get into Walgreens, they think they're getting a little pinprick, but then the nurse's assistant or what do they call it? Phlebotomist? I don't know. The blood nurse thing, she was instructed to be like, oh, the old Jesse Smollett, normally you would get the pinprick, but the test that your doctor ordered, they'd blame it on the doctor. The test that your doctor ordered, unfortunately, we got to do it the old way with the needle and all the blood. And so people were pissed because the whole thing was like, do you not like needles in your arm? Are you scared of giving blood? Well, now it's just a pinprick. Theranos, the Edison. And so, and people were pissed, like, what the heck? I thought I was doing a pinprick. I'm terrified of needles. And so they're doing the needle thing, and they're shipping all the blood to Silicon Valley, secretly testing it the way everybody else tests it in the basement, sending it back and pretending their Edison machine did it. And so you can imagine the shit is about to hit the fan. And the blood tests that they were doing weren't really even that accurate because they just threw this lab in the basement together. And the people that are doing the blood test down in the lab are quickly realizing that this is just a sham. And so it's all going down slowly. And eventually, the Wall Street Journal gets tips from inside Theranos, and this guy that his whole career, he does investigative journalism. For the Wall Street Journal comes out with a story and detailing he got all this insider information, detailing how their Edison doesn't work and how they're doing all this stuff and how investors got duped. And then she goes on Mad Money, that show with the guy like, welcome back to Mad Money. And that's when she does they're like, well, you're saying that this article from the Journal is saying that none of your shit works. So what's up? And that's when she's like, well, at first they fight you and then they call you crazy. And then all of a sudden you change the world. But then slowly it just all crashes down from there. Investors start to realize she has to close the company, everything you can imagine, criminal charges, lawsuits. She doesn't have a trial yet, but you know, it's coming. And she did a deposition where she goes under oath and she said, I don't know, 660 times. They're like, well, you're the CEO. Why don't you know anything? But I think if there's a lesson in this whole thing that I've noticed from the Fire Festival and this, it's if you're defrauding people out of millions and millions and millions of dollars, don't allow someone to film you dancing. Because both cases of this Elizabeth and the Billy guy from Fire Festival, they always had like documentary crews filming them. And then after, you know, if someone films you for the long enough time, they're going to, at some point, like at one point, the FDA approved one herpes test on the Edison. So this $100 million box, all it could do is test for one like weird herpes. And so the FDA approved that. So it shows the whole company and Elizabeth dancing to MC Hammer's Can't Touch This. So it's like, can't touch this. But if you're defrauding people, don't allow anyone to film you dancing, because down the road, when they make a documentary about it, they're going to cut between the people that lost everything, like, yeah, I was lied to and I lost my whole life savings, and then it cuts to you dancing like, can't touch this. And it's like, in the Fire Festival one, it was like that lady being like, I lost my entire life savings, and then it cut to just like Billy like jumping, like catching air on a jet ski. It's like, if you're smart enough to defraud people out of $1 million, you think you would be like, okay, dude with the camera, I'm gonna jump the jet ski, so don't film me. No one that I stole money from wants to see me flying through the air on a jet ski. It's like one of the scientists from Theranos killed himself because it just was like too much, and he thought he was gonna have to give a deposition of what's going on, and so it's like this guy killed himself, and then it cuts to like them just dancing to MC Hammer's Can't Touch This. Can't touch this. And then you change the world. All right, that's where I'm cutting it off. No show tomorrow, I repeat. Unfortunately, no show tomorrow. I think I'm going to talk about the Smollett case Friday. That's the goal. But to everybody that supports this channel by subscribing and liking and commenting, thank you so much. I love you all. True Crime Loser out. Why, Stive and why?